fake millionaires tried to steal her baby's name, until the judge revealed the family's true debt. This is the story of Lisa Chen, a new mother, exhausted from childbirth, who finds not joy, but an immediate attack on her cultural identity. The wealthy and arrogant Morrison family demanded that she erase the memory of her mother, imposing a prestigious name on her newborn daughter, May. They tried to blackmail Lisa into submitting, using their supposed financial power, never suspecting that her resistance would lead to a courtroom confrontation that would reveal the shocking truth about their seemingly perfect empire. The birth certificate lay on the hospital table between them, unsigned. Lisa Chen stared at the blank line where her daughter's name should go, her hands trembling as she held the pen. Across from her sat Catherine Morrison and her husband Richard, their expressions a careful mixture of concern and calculation. "Lisa, dear, we've been over this," Catherine said, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "The name Evelyn is a family tradition. Every firstborn daughter in the Morrison family, for 5 generations, has been named Evelyn. It would be such an honor for your baby to carry that legacy." Lisa looked down at her newborn daughter, sleeping peacefully in the hospital bassinet. She had been born just 8 hours ago, after 17 hours of exhausting labor. Lisa had done it alone, with only the nurses for support, because the Morrison family had been too busy to attend the birth. Too busy. That's what they always were when it came to actually supporting Lisa. But when it came to controlling her decisions, making demands, dictating how she should raise her daughter, they suddenly had all the time in the world. "I want to name her May," Lisa said quietly. "After my mother." The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. "May," Richard Morrison repeated, his nose wrinkling as if he'd smelled something unpleasant. "That's ethnic. It's Chinese," Lisa said. "My mother's name. She passed away last year, and I want to honor her memory." "But darling," Catherine interjected, "we already discussed this during your pregnancy. The Morrison name is prestigious. It opens doors. Evelyn Morrison sounds like someone who belongs in society. May. Well, it sounds like someone who works in a nail salon." The casual racism in Catherine's words made Lisa's stomach turn, but she had learned to expect it from the Morrison family. They had been appalled when their precious son David had gotten involved with Lisa, a first-generation Chinese-American woman whose parents had immigrated to the United States with nothing but hope and determination. Lisa's mother had worked 3 jobs to put Lisa through nursing school. Her father had died when Lisa was 12, leaving her mother to raise her alone. They had never been wealthy, but they had been rich in love, in values, in the kind of strength that came from surviving hardship. The Morrisons had none of that strength because they had never needed it. Wealth had insulated them from struggle, from consequence, from the kind of character-building adversity that made people truly strong. "Where is David?" Lisa asked, looking at the empty doorway. "Shouldn't he be here for this conversation?" Catherine and Richard exchanged a glance that Lisa had seen before, the glance that said they knew something she didn't, that they were about to deliver news she wouldn't like. "David had to fly to Singapore for business," Richard said. "Very important merger. He couldn't postpone it." "His daughter was born 8 hours ago," Lisa said, her voice rising despite her exhaustion. "And he flew to Singapore?" "The merger is worth $50 million, Catherine said, as if that explained everything. "Surely you understand that David has responsibilities. He can't just drop everything because of a baby." Because of a baby. As if their granddaughter was an inconvenience, an interruption to their carefully planned life. "When did he leave?" Lisa asked. Another exchanged glance. This morning, Richard admitted. He got the call last night and had to catch the first flight out. Last night, Lisa repeated slowly. So he knew I was in labor, knew the baby could come any time, and he left anyway. Lisa, you're being emotional, Catherine said. Hormones make new mothers irrational. You'll understand once you've had time to rest and think clearly. Lisa wanted to scream, wanted to tell them exactly what she thought of their priorities, their values, their entire hollow existence. But she was too tired, too overwhelmed, too vulnerable to fight. I'm naming her May, Lisa said firmly. May Chen Morrison. She'll have David's last name, but her first name will honor my mother. Absolutely not, Richard said, his voice hardening. If that child is going to be a Morrison, she'll have a proper Morrison first name. Family tradition is non-negotiable. She's my daughter, Lisa said. Not yours, mine. I carried her for 9 months. I went through labor alone because your son was too busy. I get to name her. You get nothing without us, Catherine said, the mask of sweetness finally cracking. Do you understand that, Lisa? Nothing. You live in our house. You eat our food. Your medical bills are being paid by our insurance. Even the clothes you're wearing right now, we bought for you. The truth of those words cut deep because they were accurate. When Lisa had gotten pregnant, she had been working as a nurse at a community clinic. But complications during the pregnancy had forced her to stop working, and without income, she'd had no choice but to accept the Morrison family's generous offer to move into their guest house. What she hadn't realized at the time was that generosity always came with strings attached. The Morrison family didn't give anything without expecting control in return. We've been more than patient with you, Richard continued. We overlooked David's poor judgment in getting involved with someone so far beneath his social standing. We accepted this pregnancy even though you two aren't married. We've provided for you financially. The least you can do is show some gratitude by honoring our family traditions. Beneath his social standing, Lisa repeated, feeling tears of anger and humiliation burn behind her eyes. That's what you think of me. We think you're a gold digger who trapped our son with a pregnancy, Catherine said bluntly. But David insisted on taking responsibility, so here we are. We're making the best of an unfortunate situation, but there are limits to our tolerance, Lisa. Cross them at your peril. Lisa looked at her sleeping daughter, at this tiny, perfect human being who had done nothing to deserve being born into such a toxic family dynamic. What if I say no? Lisa asked. What if I name her May anyway? Then we withdraw our support, Richard said simply. No house. No insurance. No financial help of any kind. You'll be on your own with a newborn baby and no income. Is that really what you want? It was blackmail. Pure and simple. Sign away her right to name her own daughter, or lose everything. Lisa thought about calling David, but she knew it was pointless. He had shown where his priorities were by flying to Singapore while she was in labor. He had chosen his family's business over his own child's birth. Why would he suddenly side with her over his parents? I need time to think, Lisa said quietly. You have until tomorrow morning, Catherine said, standing up and smoothing her designer skirt. The hospital needs the birth certificate completed before discharge. Choose wisely, Lisa. Your daughter's entire future depends on it. They left, and Lisa was alone with her baby and her impossible choice. That night, a nurse named Patricia came to check on them. Patricia was an older woman, probably in her 60s, with kind eyes and gentle hands. She had been one of the nurses who coached Lisa through labor, who held her hand when the pain got too intense, who stayed past the end of her shift to make sure Lisa was okay. How are you feeling, honey? Patricia asked, checking the baby's vitals. Overwhelmed, Lisa admitted, and trapped. I heard some of the conversation earlier, Patricia said carefully. The walls in maternity wards are thin. Those people, the older couple, they're the baby's grandparents? Yes. Patricia was quiet for a moment, then sat down in the chair beside Lisa's bed. 25 years ago, Patricia said, I had a patient very much like you. Young, alone, being pressured by her wealthy in-laws to make decisions she didn't want to make. She gave in to everything they demanded because she was scared and had no resources. She let them name the baby, let them dictate how she raised the child, let them control every aspect of her life. What happened to her? She got swallowed up, Patricia said, lost herself completely, became this hollow version of who she used to be. Eventually, she lost custody of her own child because the wealthy family proved she was mentally unstable. The truth was, she had been driven to depression by years of being treated as less than human. Lisa felt cold. Why are you telling me this? Because I don't want to see it happen again, Patricia said. Lisa, I know you're in a difficult position. But once you start compromising on things that matter to you, once you let them take your power away, piece by piece, it never stops. They'll control your daughter's name, then her education, then her friends, then her entire life. And you'll wake up one day and realize you're not her mother anymore. You're just the woman who gave birth to her. But what can I do? Lisa asked, desperation creeping into her voice. They're right. I have nothing without them. No home, no money, no way to support myself and a baby. You have more than you think, Patricia said. She pulled out a business card from her pocket. This is a lawyer friend of mine, specializes in family law. She's helped women in situations like yours before. At least talk to her before you make any decisions. Lisa took the card, staring at the name printed on it. Jennifer Martinez, family law attorney. I can't afford a lawyer, Lisa said. Jennifer does pro bono work for cases she believes in, Patricia said. And I have a feeling she'll believe in yours. Call her tomorrow morning, before you sign anything. After Patricia left, Lisa held the business card in one hand and looked at her daughter with the other. May. She had known from the moment she felt the first flutter of movement in her belly that she wanted to name her daughter after her mother. May Chen had been a woman of incredible strength, working until her hands were raw to give her daughter opportunities she never had. And now Lisa was being asked to erase that legacy, to pretend it didn't matter, to let her daughter be molded into someone the Morrison family deemed acceptable. I won't let them do it, Lisa whispered to her sleeping baby. I won't let them take your name. It's the first gift I give you, and it means something. It means you come from strength, from sacrifice, from real love. Not from money or status or empty tradition. The next morning, before the Morrisons arrived, Lisa called Jennifer Martinez. The attorney answered on the second ring. Ms. Martinez, my name is Lisa Chen. Patricia, a nurse at Mercy General, gave me your number. She said you might be able to help me. Lisa, yes, Patricia called me last night and explained your situation. Can you tell me exactly what's happening? Lisa explained everything. The pressure to change her daughter's name, the financial control the Morrisons held over her, the threats to withdraw support if she didn't comply. Jennifer was quiet for a moment after Lisa finished. Lisa, what they're doing is financial coercion. It's not legally actionable in the way physical abuse is, but it's deeply problematic. However, I need to be honest with you about something. If you fight them on this, they will make your life very difficult. I know. Do you have any family who could support you? Friends? Anyone who could provide housing or financial help while you get back on your feet? Lisa thought about it. Her mother was gone. Her father was gone. She had friends from nursing school, but most of them were struggling themselves, trying to pay off student loans and afford rent in an expensive city. She had no support system beyond the Morrisons, which was exactly why they had so much power over her. No, Lisa admitted. I have no one. Then we need to be strategic, Jennifer said. We need to find leverage. Tell me, is there anything you know about the Morrison family that they wouldn't want made public? Any secrets? Any scandals? Any financial impropriety? I don't know, Lisa said. They're very private people. But David, my boyfriend, he mentioned once that his father's business practices were sometimes questionable. Something about accounting irregularities, but he didn't go into detail. Interesting, Jennifer said. Lisa, I need you to do something. Sign the birth certificate with the name you want, May Chen Morrison. Do it before the Morrisons get there this morning. Once the legal document is filed, it's much harder to change. But they'll retaliate. Let them. Because once they do, once they follow through on their threats to cut you off financially, we have grounds for a case. Financial abandonment of a newborn. We can argue that they're using money as a weapon to control you, which family courts don't look kindly upon. What if I lose? Lisa asked. What if they take my daughter away? They can't take your daughter away just because you're poor, Jennifer said firmly. Poverty is not a crime, and if they try, we fight. But Lisa, you need to understand something. This is going to be hard. Harder than labor, harder than anything you've experienced. Are you prepared for that? Lisa looked at her daughter, thought about her own mother's strength, thought about the kind of woman she wanted to be, and the kind of example she wanted to set. Yes, Lisa said. I'm prepared. An hour later, Lisa signed the birth certificate. May Chen Morrison, the first gift to her daughter. A name that meant something, that honored someone who mattered, that refused to be erased. When Catherine and Richard Morrison arrived at 10 a.m., the deed was already done. Well, Catherine said brightly, have we made the sensible decision? Yes, Lisa said. I named her May. The silence that followed was arctic. You did what? Richard's voice was dangerously quiet. I named my daughter May, after my mother, as I told you yesterday I would. Catherine's perfectly made-up face contorted with rage. You ungrateful little... Careful, Lisa interrupted. We're in a hospital. Witnesses everywhere. Richard pulled out his phone. David needs to know about this immediately. David's in Singapore, Lisa said. He made his choice about what matters to him. I've made mine. You've made a terrible mistake, Catherine hissed. Pack your things. You're no longer welcome in our home. I expected as much, Lisa said calmly, though her heart was racing. I'll be out by the end of the week. End of the week? Richard laughed cruelly. You'll be out by tomorrow. And don't expect any financial support. You wanted to make independent decisions? Fine. Be independent. They left in a flurry of angry gestures and whispered threats. A nurse who had witnessed the exchange came over to Lisa, concerned. Are you okay? Do you need us to call security? I'm okay, Lisa said. I just need to make a phone call. She called Jennifer Martinez again. They did exactly what you said they would, Lisa told the attorney. They're cutting me off completely. Good, Jennifer said, and Lisa could hear the satisfaction in her voice. Now we have them on record, abandoning a mother and newborn over a naming dispute. That's going to look terrible in court. How are you doing? Really? Terrified? Lisa admitted. But also relieved. At least now I know where I stand. Lisa, I'm filing an emergency petition today. We're going to ask for temporary support while we investigate the Morrison family's finances. Patricia told me she suspects there might be more going on with their money situation than appears on the surface. What do you mean? I mean that people who lord their wealth over others often turn out to have less wealth than they claim. Sometimes it's all smoke and mirrors, and once you shine a light on it, everything falls apart. Let me do some digging. In the meantime, do you have somewhere to stay tonight? The hospital's social worker is helping me arrange emergency housing. There's a transitional living facility for new mothers in crisis situations. Perfect. I'll be in touch tomorrow with an update. After the call, Lisa sat alone with May, feeling the weight of what she had just done. She had chosen her daughter's name over financial security. She had chosen principle over comfort. She had chosen to fight rather than submit, and she had absolutely no idea if it was the right choice. Over the next 3 days, Lisa's world turned upside down. She was discharged from the hospital and moved into Grace Haven, a temporary housing facility for mothers in crisis. The room was small, barely larger than the hospital room she'd left, but it was clean and safe, and the other mothers there understood what it was like to be alone and scared. David called once, 2 days after May's birth. "Lisa, what were you thinking?" His voice was irritated, impatient. "My parents are furious. They said you deliberately disobeyed them about the name." "I named my daughter after my mother," Lisa said. "That's not disobedience. That's basic human dignity." "You couldn't have just compromised? Used Evelyn as a middle name? Could you have just been here for your daughter's birth?" Lisa shot back. "Could you have just prioritized your family over a business deal for once in your life? That business deal is worth... I know what it's worth, David. $50 million. You've made that very clear. What I want to know is, what is your daughter worth to you?" Silence on the other end of the line. "That's not fair," David finally said. "Nothing about this situation is fair," Lisa said. "Your parents are punishing me for refusing to erase my culture, my mother's memory, my basic right to name my own child, and you're letting them. I'm caught in the middle." "No, David, you're not in the middle. You're on their side. You've always been on their side. I was just too naive to see it." She hung up before he could respond. May started crying, needing to be fed, and Lisa focused on that immediate need rather than the heartbreak of realizing that the man she thought loved her was really just a boy who had never learned to stand up to his parents. Jennifer Martinez came to visit on the 4th day. "I have news," the attorney said, sitting in the small common room of Grace Haven. "And you're going to find it very interesting." "What kind of news?" "The kind that changes everything." Jennifer opened her briefcase and pulled out a thick file. "I did some digging into the Morrison family finances, and I found something remarkable. They're broke." Lisa blinked. "What? Broke? Or at least on the verge of bankruptcy?" "Richard Morrison's company has been hemorrhaging money for the past 3 years. Bad investments, mismanagement, and apparently some questionable accounting practices that are currently under investigation by the SEC. But they live in a mansion. They drive luxury cars. Catherine wears jewelry that costs more than... All on credit," Jennifer interrupted. "All leverage to the hilt. The house has 3 mortgages. The cars are leased. The jewelry is borrowed against future earnings. They're what we call house poor, living way beyond their means and desperately trying to maintain appearances." Lisa tried to process this information. So when they said I had nothing without them, they were lying. or at least drastically overstating their own resources. They can't afford to support you because they can barely afford to support themselves, which means all those threats, all that power they claim to have over you, it was an illusion. But the insurance that's paying for my medical bills is actually a state program that you qualified for on your own. The Morrisons didn't provide it. They just let you think they did. They added you to their application for state assistance and then took credit for paying your bills. Lisa felt a strange mixture of emotions. Relief that she hadn't actually been as dependent as she thought, anger at being manipulated, and something close to pity for a family so desperate to maintain status that they would lie about their finances. "There's more," Jennifer said. "David's business trip to Singapore. It wasn't about a $50 million merger. There is no merger. The company is laying off staff, not expanding. David was sent overseas to meet with potential investors who might bail out his father's failing company. The whole thing is a house of cards that's about to collapse. Why are you telling me all this?" "Because knowledge is power," Jennifer said. "And because we're going to court next week to argue for child support from David. When we do, we're going to reveal exactly what the Morrison family's real financial situation is. And we're going to show the judge that they've been using false claims of wealth to manipulate and control you. Won't that embarrass them?" "Absolutely," Jennifer said. "That's the point. They've been using shame as a weapon against you, making you feel less than, making you feel like you should be grateful for their generosity. Now we're going to show everyone the truth. They're not generous benefactors. They're manipulative liars who tried to steal your right to name your own daughter. The court hearing took place on a Tuesday morning in family court. Lisa wore a simple dress borrowed from another mother at Grace Haven. She carried May in a donated car seat. Everything she owned fit in 2 bags. The Morrisons arrived in what Lisa now knew was a leased Mercedes, wearing designer clothes that were probably purchased on credit cards they couldn't actually afford to pay off. They looked wealthy, successful, superior. But Jennifer Martinez was about to tear that illusion apart. Judge Sarah Goldman presided, a woman in her 50s known for her no-nonsense approach to family law and her particular intolerance for anyone who used children as pawns in adult conflicts. "This is a hearing to determine temporary child support obligations," Judge Goldman began. "Ms. Chen is requesting support from Mr. David Morrison, the acknowledged father of the child. Mr. Morrison, are you contesting paternity?" David's attorney, a slick man in an expensive suit, stood up. "No, Your Honor. Mr. Morrison acknowledges paternity. However, we are countering with a petition for primary custody, based on Ms. Chen's inability to provide adequate care for the child." "On what grounds?" "Ms. Chen is currently homeless, living in a transitional facility. She has no income, no resources, and no stable housing. Meanwhile, Mr. Morrison and his family can provide every advantage." "Let me stop you there," Jennifer interrupted, standing. "Your Honor, may I present evidence?" Judge Goldman nodded. Jennifer approached the bench with her file. "Your Honor, the Morrison family has represented themselves as wealthy benefactors who graciously supported Ms. Chen during her pregnancy. This representation was used to pressure Ms. Chen into signing over her right to name her own daughter, with threats of financial abandonment if she refused." "Naming rights?" Judge Goldman looked interested. "What was the dispute?" "Ms. Chen wanted to name her daughter May, after her late mother. The Morrison family demanded the name Evelyn, citing family tradition. When Ms. Chen refused, they followed through on their threats to withdraw all support." "That seems petty," Judge Goldman observed. "It was more than petty, Your Honor." It was part of a pattern of control and manipulation, all based on false claims of financial superiority. I have documentation here showing that the Morrison family is actually on the verge of bankruptcy. The courtroom erupted in whispers. Catherine Morrison went pale. Richard's face turned red with fury. "That's a lie!" Richard burst out. "Mr. Morrison, you'll have a chance to respond." Judge Goldman said, "Ms. Martinez, present your evidence." Jennifer laid out everything. The bank statements showing massive debt, the SEC investigation into Richard's business practices, the layoffs at Morrison Enterprises, the multiple mortgages on their home, the state assistance programs they were secretly using while claiming to be wealthy enough to support Lisa. "Your Honor," Jennifer continued, "the Morrison family has been living a lie, using the appearance of wealth to control Ms. Chen's choices, including the fundamental right to name her own child. They threatened to withdraw support they didn't actually have the resources to provide, in an attempt to force her to abandon her cultural heritage and her mother's memory." Judge Goldman looked at the Morrison family's attorney. "Do you have evidence to refute these claims?" The attorney whispered frantically with Richard Morrison, but their body language told the story. Slumped shoulders, angry whispers, the demeanor of people who had been caught. "Your Honor," the attorney finally said, "my client's financial situation is complicated, but it doesn't change the fact that they can provide a better environment for the child than a homeless woman living in transitional housing." "Can they, though?" Judge Goldman asked. "Because it sounds to me like they're barely providing for themselves. And more concerning is the pattern of manipulation and control. Using false claims of wealth to pressure a new mother into giving up her right to name her own child is, quite frankly, appalling." She turned to David. "Mr. Morrison, you're the father. What's your position on all of this?" David stood awkwardly. "Your Honor, I just want what's best for my daughter." "And what do you think is best?" I think..." David looked at his parents, then at Lisa, then back at the judge. "I think my daughter should have a name that means something to her mother. I think she should know where she comes from. I think..." His voice dropped. "I think I've made terrible mistakes, prioritizing the wrong things." Catherine grabbed his arm, but David gently pulled away. "I wasn't there when my daughter was born," David said. "I flew to Singapore for a business deal that doesn't even exist. I let my parents manipulate Lisa, threaten her, treat her like she was less than human. And I did nothing. I did nothing." "David, sit down," Richard hissed. "No," David said. "No, I'm done sitting down and letting you control everything. Dad, your company is failing. We both know it. This whole trip to Singapore, the whole merger story, it was all a lie to keep up appearances. And I went along with it. I abandoned the mother of my child for a lie." The courtroom was silent. "Your Honor," David continued, "I want to do right by my daughter. I want to pay child support. I want to be her father, really be her father. But I need to do it honestly, not under my parents' control. I need to figure out who I am, separate from them." Judge Goldman made notes, her expression unreadable. "Ms. Chen," she said, "tell me about the name you chose." Lisa stood, holding May close. "May means beautiful, in Chinese, Your Honor. But more than that, it's my mother's name. She died last year and she never got to meet her granddaughter. She came to this country with nothing. She worked 3 jobs to give me opportunities she never had. She taught me that strength isn't about money or status. It's about character, about integrity, about fighting for what matters even when it's hard." Tears were streaming down Lisa's face now. "I wanted my daughter to have her name, because I wanted her to carry that legacy. I wanted her to know that she comes from strength, from sacrifice, from real love. The Morrison family wanted to erase that, to pretend my mother didn't matter, that my culture didn't matter, that I didn't matter. But we do matter, all of us, and my daughter deserves to know that. Judge Goldman was quiet for a long moment. "Here's my ruling," she finally said. "Mr. David Morrison is ordered to pay child support in the amount of $2,000 per month, based on his actual income, not his family's claimed wealth. Primary custody remains with Ms. Chen. Mr. Morrison is granted supervised visitation, transitioning to unsupervised once he demonstrates consistent involvement." She looked at Richard and Catherine Morrison. "As for you two, I want to be very clear. Your financial manipulation of Ms. Chen, your threats to withdraw support unless she gave up her right to name her own child, your attempts to erase her cultural heritage, all of it is not only morally reprehensible but borders on financial abuse. If I see any evidence that you're continuing to interfere with Ms. Chen's parenting decisions or attempting to manipulate her through financial means, I will not hesitate to issue a restraining order." "Your Honor," Richard tried to interrupt. "I'm not finished," Judge Goldman said sternly. "You tried to steal that baby's name. You tried to erase her mother's legacy. You tried to use money you don't actually have, as a weapon. That stops now. Do you understand?" The Morrisons nodded, humiliated. "The name Mei Chen Morrison stands as registered," Judge Goldman concluded. "This hearing is adjourned." Outside the courtroom, David approached Lisa hesitantly. "I'm sorry," he said, "for everything. For not being there, for letting my parents control me, for choosing wrong every single time." "I know," Lisa said. "But sorry isn't enough, David. You need to show May through your actions that you've changed, that you can be the father she deserves." "I will," David said. "I'm moving out of my parents' house, getting my own place, figuring out who I am without their influence. It's going to take time, but I want to do it right. Good," Lisa said, "because May needs a father, not just a checkbook." 6 months later, Lisa was standing in front of the mirror in her new apartment, getting ready for her first day back at work. She had returned to nursing, working the night shift, so she could be with May during the day. David had been surprisingly consistent with visits, showing up every weekend, actually engaging with his daughter, rather than just taking photos for social media. The Morrisons had essentially disappeared from their lives. Their financial situation had become public knowledge after the SEC investigation resulted in charges. Richard had been forced to file for bankruptcy. The mansion was sold. The luxury cars were repossessed. Everything they had used to project wealth and power was revealed to be built on debt and deception. In a strange way, Lisa felt sorry for them. They had spent their entire lives chasing status, trying to maintain an image, and it had all crumbled because they couldn't accept something as simple as their granddaughter having a Chinese name. But mostly, Lisa felt grateful. Grateful that she had stood her ground. Grateful for Patricia, the nurse who had given her Jennifer's number. Grateful for Jennifer herself, who had fought for her. Grateful for the judge who had seen through the Morrisons' manipulation. And most of all, grateful for her daughter, who had a name that meant something, that connected her to her heritage, that honored a grandmother she would never meet, but whose strength lived on through that name. "May," Lisa whispered, looking at her sleeping daughter. "Your grandmother would be so proud of you, and she'd be proud that I fought for your name. Because names matter, baby. They tell stories. They carry legacies. And yours tells the story of strength, of courage, of refusing to be erased." 3 years later, Lisa received an unexpected letter. It was from Catherine Morrison. The letter was brief, written in shaky handwriting that suggested the writer was either elderly or unwell. Dear Lisa, I know I have no right to contact you, and if you choose to throw this letter away without reading it, I understand. But I needed to write to you, needed to try to explain, even though there's no explanation that makes what we did acceptable. Richard and I spent our entire marriage chasing an image. We thought wealth and status were everything. We thought the Morrison name was sacred, that tradition and appearance mattered more than people's feelings or dignity. We were wrong. So terribly, cruelly wrong. When we tried to take May's name away, when we tried to erase your mother's memory, we were really trying to erase our own inadequacy. We knew we had nothing real to offer. No genuine love, no authentic connection. Just money that was already disappearing. So we clung to tradition, to names, to appearances, because that was all we had. We've lost everything now. The business, the house, our reputation. Richard is in poor health. I'm alone most days, thinking about the family we could have had if we had chosen love over status, connection over control. I hear from David that May is thriving, that she's brilliant and kind and proud of her Chinese heritage, that she knows who her grandmother Mei Chen was and tries to embody her strength. I'm glad you won. I'm glad you gave her that name. Because you were right and we were wrong. And May deserves to know where she comes from. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I wanted you to know that you taught this old woman a lesson she should have learned decades ago. Real wealth isn't money or status. It's integrity. It's knowing who you are and refusing to compromise on what matters. You have that wealth in abundance. I had none of it. Thank you for giving my granddaughter something I never could. A connection to real strength, real sacrifice, real love. Catherine Morrison. Lisa read the letter 3 times, feeling complicated emotions. Sympathy for the sad woman who wrote it. Anger at the years of pain that woman had caused. And something close to pity for a life wasted, chasing things that never mattered. She showed the letter to David when he came for his weekend with May. "My mother wrote this?" he asked, surprised. "She never admits she's wrong about anything." "People change," Lisa said. "Sometimes loss teaches lessons that success never could." "Do you forgive her?" David asked. Lisa thought about it. "I don't know, but I understand her better now. She was scared of being ordinary, scared of losing status, scared that without wealth and tradition she had no value. So she tried to take something that would have given her a sense of importance, control over May's name, over our lives. But you didn't let her." "No," Lisa smiled. "I didn't. Because I had something she didn't." "What?" "A mother who taught me that my value doesn't come from what others think of me. It comes from knowing who I am and standing up for what matters, even when it costs me everything." That weekend, Lisa did something unexpected. She took May to visit Catherine Morrison. The woman who answered the door was almost unrecognizable from the perfectly coiffed, designer-wearing matriarch Lisa had known. Catherine was thin, her hair gray and unstyled, wearing simple clothes that looked like they came from a thrift store. She lived in a small apartment now, nothing like the mansion she had once called home. "Lisa?" Catherine's voice was shocked. "And May?" "Hello, Catherine," Lisa said. "We came to visit." Catherine's eyes filled with tears. "Why? After everything I did to you?" "Because May asked about her grandmother," Lisa said. "I told her about my mother, about her strength and sacrifice. And then she asked if she had other grandmothers. I could have lied. I could have said no. But I didn't want to teach my daughter that grudges are more important than truth. Catherine looked at the little girl, 3 years old now, with her mother's delicate features and a confidence that came from being genuinely loved. "Hello, May," Catherine said softly, kneeling down to the child's level. "Hi," May said shyly. "Mommy says you're my grandma." "I am," Catherine said, "though I haven't been a very good one." "It's okay," May said with the simple forgiveness of childhood. "Mommy says people make mistakes, but they can get better." Catherine looked up at Lisa, tears streaming down her face. "May we come in?" Lisa asked. The apartment was small but clean, filled with items that were clearly donated or second-hand. On one wall was a single photograph, David as a child, smiling genuinely, before the weight of family expectations had made him forget how. "I don't have much to offer you," Catherine said, gesturing to the modest furniture. "Some tea, perhaps?" "Tea would be nice," Lisa said. As Catherine prepared the tea with trembling hands, May explored the small apartment with a child's curiosity. She found a box of old photographs and pulled them out. "Mommy, who's this?" May asked, holding up a photo. Lisa looked at it. It was a young Catherine, probably in her 20s, wearing a simple dress and laughing at something off camera. She looked happy, genuine. Nothing like the calculated woman Lisa had known. "That's your grandmother when she was young," Lisa said. "She looks nice," May said. "I was nice once," Catherine said quietly, bringing the tea. "Before I learned to measure everything by money and status. Before I forgot what actually matters." They sat together, this unlikely trio, and Catherine told stories. Not about wealth or society events, but about her childhood, growing up middle class, dreaming of being a teacher before she married Richard and got caught up in his ambitions. "I had wanted to teach kindergarten," Catherine said. "I loved children, but Richard said it wasn't appropriate for a Morrison wife to work. So I gave up my dream and spent 40 years trying to maintain an image that was never real." "It's not too late," Lisa said. "You could still teach or volunteer. There are programs that need reading tutors, mentors." "At my age? With my reputation?" "Your age means you have experience," Lisa said, "and your reputation is only what you make of it going forward. You can spend the rest of your life regretting the past, or you can spend it building something better." Catherine looked at May, who was happily playing with the old photographs, creating stories about the people in them. "She has your strength," Catherine said to Lisa. "But she also has something I never taught David. Joy. Authentic, unself-conscious joy. She has it because she knows she's loved for who she is, not for what she represents," Lisa said. "Because her name honors where she comes from. Because she's not being forced to be someone she's not." Catherine nodded slowly. "I read about the Chinese tradition of generational names after the court case. How the name connects the child to their ancestors, to their history. It's beautiful. I don't know why I couldn't see that before." "Because you were scared," Lisa said simply. "Fear makes people do terrible things." Before they left, Catherine knelt down to May again. "May, I want to tell you something about your name. Can I do that?" May nodded, interested. "Your name means beautiful, but it also connects you to your grandmother Chen, who was a very strong woman. When your mommy wanted to give you that name, I tried to stop her. I wanted you to have a different name, one that came from my family. Do you know why?" May shook her head. "Because I was foolish. I thought my family's name was more important than your family's name. But I was wrong. Your name is perfect. It tells everyone who you are and where you come from, and I'm sorry I tried to take that away from you." "It's okay," May said, and hugged Catherine spontaneously. Catherine held the child and cried silently, finally understanding what she had almost destroyed in her desperate attempt to control something that was never hers to control. 5 years passed. Lisa continued nursing, eventually becoming a nursing supervisor. David grew into his role as a father, no longer living in his parents' shadow. He met someone new, a woman who valued him for himself rather than his family name, and they built a modest but happy life together. Catherine volunteered at an after-school program, teaching reading to children from low-income families. She never regained her wealth or status, but she found something better: purpose, connection, the satisfaction of helping children learn. Richard Morrison died of a heart attack 2 years after losing everything. He never acknowledged his mistakes, never apologized, went to his grave, still bitter about the fall from grace. But at his funeral, David gave a eulogy that was honest rather than flattering. "My father taught me to value the wrong things," David said. "He taught me that money was power, that status was everything, that people could be controlled if you had enough wealth. He was wrong about all of it, and it took losing everything for me to understand that." He looked at Lisa and May in the audience. "The greatest lesson my father taught me was an accidental one, a cautionary tale about what happens when you prioritize image over integrity. I hope I can be a better man than he was, a better father than he was, and I hope my daughter learns from his mistakes, rather than repeating them." May was 8 years old when she first asked her mother about the court case, about the fight over her name. Lisa had saved all the documents, all the newspaper clippings about the Morrison family's fall from grace, knowing that someday her daughter would ask, "Mommy, why did they not want me to be named May?" the little girl asked. Lisa explained it as honestly as she could, age-appropriate, but truthful. They thought their family name was more important than our family name. They thought being Chinese was something to hide instead of something to be proud of. "That's silly," May said. "It is silly," Lisa agreed. "But a lot of people think that way. They think some cultures are better than others, some traditions more valuable. They're wrong. But they think it anyway. Are you glad you fought for my name?" "Every single day," Lisa said. "Because every time I call your name, I remember your grandmother Chen. I remember her strength, her sacrifice, everything she gave up so I could have opportunities. And now you carry that legacy forward." "I want to be strong like her," May said. "You already are," Lisa said. "You come from a long line of strong women. That's what your name tells the world." 10 years after the court case, there was a knock on Lisa's door. She opened it to find Jennifer Martinez, the lawyer who had fought for her all those years ago. "Jennifer, what a surprise!" "I hope it's okay that I just showed up," Jennifer said. "But I have something to show you, and I wanted to do it in person." She pulled out a legal document. "Remember how I filed a complaint with the state bar about the Morrison family's lawyers? About the pattern of using wealth to manipulate custody proceedings?" "Yes, but nothing came of it," Lisa said. "Actually, something did," Jennifer smiled. "It took 10 years, but the investigation finally concluded. 3 attorneys have been disbarred for ethics violations. And the state has implemented new protections for parents facing financial coercion in custody cases. It's being called the May-Chen Morrison Protection Act." Lisa sat down, stunned. "They named it after my daughter?" "They named it after your fight," Jennifer said. "Because you stood up to people who tried to use money as a weapon. Because you refused to let them steal something as fundamental as your child's name. And because your case exposed a pattern of abuse that was happening to other families, too. Other families? 23 other cases were identified where the Morrison family's attorneys used similar tactics. Women who gave up custody, gave up naming rights, gave up their parental authority because they were told they had no choice, because they were poor and scared and alone. But you showed them there was a choice, that they could fight, that they could win. Lisa felt tears streaming down her face. I had no idea. That's because you were focused on surviving, on being a mother, on building a life. Jennifer said, but your courage had ripples you never saw. Laws changed, policies changed, and most importantly, other mothers found the courage to fight because they saw that you fought and won. That evening, Lisa told May about the Protection Act. You mean my name is in a real law? May asked, eyes wide. Your name represents something important, Lisa explained. It represents every child's right to their heritage, their culture, their family's history. It represents every mother's right to make decisions without being threatened or manipulated. Wow, May said softly. Grandmother Chen would be so proud. She would be, Lisa agreed. Because you're named after her, and now that name means something even bigger than we knew. 15 years after the court case, May Chen Morrison graduated as valedictorian of her high school. Lisa sat in the audience, watching her daughter, now a confident, brilliant young woman, give a speech about identity, heritage, and the courage to be yourself in a world that often demands conformity. My name is May Chen Morrison, she said from the podium. And for a long time I didn't understand why my name was so important to my mother. I didn't understand why she fought so hard for it, why she risked everything to keep it. The audience listened, captivated. But as I got older, I learned my name's story. I learned that my name was almost stolen from me by people who thought their culture was superior to mine. I learned that my mother stood alone against wealth and power and won. And I learned that my name carries the legacy of my grandmother, a woman who came to this country with nothing but hope and built a life through sheer determination. May paused, looking directly at Lisa. My name is not just a name. It's a battle cry. It's a reminder that we don't have to accept what others try to force on us. That we can honor where we come from while building where we're going. That our identities are precious and worth fighting for. The applause was thunderous. After the ceremony, Catherine approached Lisa. She was in her 80s now, moving slowly but with a dignity that came from years of genuine service rather than manufactured status. Thank you for letting me be here, Catherine said. For letting me be part of May's life, even after everything. You earned your place, Lisa said, by changing, by becoming the person you should have been all along. I wasted so many years, Catherine said sadly. But you didn't waste the last 15, Lisa pointed out. You taught hundreds of children to read. You volunteered in your community. You became a real grandmother to May. Not just in name, but in action. That counts for something. May joined them, her graduation gown flowing around her. Grandma Catherine, she said, hugging the elderly woman. Thank you for coming. I wouldn't have missed it for the world, Catherine said. You've grown into such an remarkable young woman. Your grandmother Chen would be so proud. And so would I, if I had any right to claim credit. You do have a right, May said, because you taught me that people can change, that mistakes don't have to define us forever. That's an important lesson. 20 years after the court case, Lisa received an invitation to speak at a legal conference about parental rights. She stood before a room full of attorneys, judges, and child advocates, and told her story once more. "When I was 25 years old and pregnant," she began, "I thought the hardest thing I would ever do was give birth. I was wrong. The hardest thing was standing up to people who tried to tell me I didn't have the right to name my own daughter." She showed a slide with a copy of the original birth certificate, the one with May Chen Morrison written in her own hand. "This is a name. Just a name. But it became a battleground for everything that matters. Cultural identity, maternal rights, the question of whether poverty disqualifies you from basic human dignity." The audience was silent, listening. I won my battle. But thousands of mothers are still fighting similar battles every day. Mothers who are told they're not good enough, not wealthy enough, not respectable enough to make decisions about their own children. Mothers who face financial coercion, cultural erasure, systemic discrimination. Lisa clicked to the next slide, showing the May Chen Morrison Protection Act. Laws help, but laws aren't enough. We need a fundamental shift in how we value motherhood, how we respect cultural heritage, how we understand that a parent's worth isn't measured in dollars or status. She paused, then shared a final thought. "My daughter is now a law student, planning to specialize in family law. She wants to fight for other families the way people fought for us. That's the real victory, not just winning our own battle, but inspiring the next generation to keep fighting." After her speech, a young woman approached Lisa, holding a baby. "Ms. Chen, I just want to thank you. My daughter's name is Aisha, after my mother who immigrated from Somalia. My in-laws wanted me to change it to something more American. But I read about your case, about the Protection Act, and I knew I had the right to say no, because you said no first." Lisa looked at the baby, at the hope in the young mother's eyes, and felt the weight of everything she had fought for. "Your daughter has a beautiful name," Lisa said. "And she's lucky to have a mother who understands that names matter, that heritage matters, that standing up for what's right matters even when it's hard. Did you ever doubt yourself?" the young woman asked. "When you were fighting, did you ever think maybe you should just give in?" "Every single day," Lisa admitted. "But then I would look at my daughter and think about my mother, and I knew I couldn't give up. Because if I gave up, I would be teaching May that her heritage was something to be ashamed of, that other people's opinions mattered more than our own truth. I couldn't do that to her." "Thank you," the young woman said. "Thank you for being brave so the rest of us could be brave too." 25 years after the court case, May Chen Morrison was sworn in as a family court judge. Lisa sat in the front row, now in her 50s, watching her daughter take an oath to uphold justice and protect families. In her acceptance speech, Judge May Morrison told her own story. "My name almost wasn't mine," she said. "Before I was born, there was a plan to erase my culture, my heritage, my mother's legacy. But my mother fought for my name. She fought alone, with nothing but courage and the certainty that she was right." Judge Morrison looked at Lisa. "That fight shaped my entire life. It taught me that justice isn't automatic, that rights have to be defended, that the powerless can defeat the powerful if they refuse to surrender. And it put me on a path to this moment, where I have the privilege and responsibility to make sure other families get the justice my mother had to fight so hard to obtain." After the ceremony, Lisa and May stood together, looking at the nameplate on the chamber door. Judge May Chen Morrison. "Your grandmother would be so proud," Lisa said. "So would her grandmother," May added. "And all the women who came before us, who fought their own battles so we could fight ours. And now you'll fight for others," Lisa said. "Because that's what our name means." May said. Not just beautiful, but strong, resilient, worth fighting for. 30 years after the court case, there was a memorial service for Catherine Morrison, who had passed away peacefully at age 85. David spoke about his mother's transformation, about how she had spent the last decades of her life trying to make amends for the first decades. But it was Judge May Morrison who gave the most meaningful eulogy. Catherine Morrison tried to steal my name, May said from the podium. That's the truth, and there's no point in pretending otherwise. She tried to erase my heritage because she thought her culture was superior, her family traditions more important. The audience shifted uncomfortably. But then something remarkable happened, May continued. She changed. She admitted she was wrong. She spent 30 years proving that people can grow, can learn, can become better than they were. That's not easy. It's actually one of the hardest things a person can do, to admit that your core beliefs were wrong and then do the work to change them. May looked at her mother in the audience. My mother taught me that forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It means acknowledging harm while allowing for transformation. Catherine Morrison harmed my family, but then she transformed, and in her transformation, she taught me lessons that shaped who I am today. After the service, Lisa and May visited Catherine's grave. They placed flowers, peonies which Catherine had loved, and stood in silence for a moment. Do you think she really changed? May asked. Or was she just trying to make herself feel better? I think she really changed, Lisa said, because change that's just for show doesn't last 30 years. She could have faded away, never contacted us again. But she showed up. She volunteered. She became a real grandmother to you. That's not performance. That's transformation. I'm glad we gave her that chance, May said. Me too, Lisa agreed. Because holding grudges might feel satisfying, but it doesn't build anything. Forgiveness, when it's earned, creates something new. 40 years after the court case, Lisa Chen was honored at a ceremony celebrating the 40th anniversary of the May Chen Morrison Protection Act. The law had evolved over the decades, expanding protections for parents facing not just financial coercion, but any form of manipulation or discrimination in custody proceedings. Judge May Morrison, now in her 40s and a respected voice in family law, introduced her mother. 40 years ago, my mother was a scared, alone new mother, being threatened by powerful people, May said. She could have given in. Most people would have. But she didn't, because she understood something fundamental, that our names, our identities, our heritage, are not luxuries to be negotiated away. They are essential parts of who we are. Lisa took the podium, moving more slowly now, but with the same strength that had carried her through that impossible fight decades ago. Thank you all for this honor, she said. But I want to be clear about something. I didn't fight for my daughter's name because I was brave. I fought because I had no choice. When someone tries to erase who you are, when they try to steal your child's connection to their history, you fight. Not because you're strong, but because surrendering means losing yourself. She paused, looking at the audience full of lawyers, judges, activists, people who had spent decades fighting for family rights. The law that bears my daughter's name has protected thousands of families. But laws can be changed. Protections can be eroded. That's why each generation needs to understand why these fights matter, why names matter, why heritage matters, why the right to make decisions about your own children without being threatened or coerced matters. Lisa pulled out an old photograph, the one from the hospital, taken by a nurse on the day she signed that birth certificate. In the photo, Lisa looked exhausted, scared, but determined, holding newborn May with fierce protectiveness. "This is what fighting for your child looks like," Lisa said. "Not glamorous, not easy, just necessary. And if my story helps even one parent find the courage to stand up for their family's rights, then every moment of that fight was worth it." The standing ovation lasted 5 minutes. That night, 3 generations of women sat together in Lisa's living room. Lisa, now 70, May at 40, and May's own daughter, 8-year-old Leanne Chen Morrison, named for Lisa's mother, continuing the tradition. "Grandma," Leanne asked, "why is there a law named after my mom?" Lisa smiled, pulling the little girl onto her lap. "Because sometimes when people fight for what's right, it changes more than just their own lives. It changes the world a little bit. Your mom's name became a symbol of something important, and now you carry that legacy forward." "What does my name mean?" Leanne asked. "It means graceful willow," Lisa said, "and it honors your great-great-grandmother, who was the strongest woman I ever knew." "Tell me about her," Leanne said. And Lisa did, the same way she had told May, and the same way May would someday tell Leanne's children. The story of a woman who came to America with nothing, who worked until her hands were raw, who gave her daughter opportunities she never had. The story that started a legacy of strength that would continue through generations. Because that's what names do. They carry stories, they preserve legacies, they connect us to who we were and who we're becoming. And some names, fought for and won against impossible odds, become more than names. They become declarations, battle cries, reminders that justice is possible, that courage matters, that one woman, standing alone, can change the world. May Chen Morrison, a name almost stolen, a name worth fighting for, a name that changed everything. The end.